RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 27, Episode 13 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. And we didn't figure out what order we were going to be talking again. My name is Stu. And the free-for-all begins.
My name is Bill.
Stork.
I'm not going to make Kimmy go last. I'm not going to be that dick.
Kimmy.
And I'm Tyler.
Right. In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, Trenchworks writes in about playing a mixed in-person remote game. Ben from Texas writes in about XP for failure. And Joe Crack writes in about online dice rollers. And we might have a fourth email since we have enough people on here. I'll go and look for that. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We have social medias. We have a Twitter, and we have an Instagrams, and a Facebooks, and a MeWe, Happy Jack's RPG, all one word. That's Happy Jack's RPG, all one word. If you'd like to watch the show live, go to happyjacks.org/live at 7:08 p.m. Pacific time, and you can watch the show there and see our faces while we talk at you. Mm-hmm. Oh, and I have books out, and my third one is in proofreading now.
Yay!
Wow.
You can go to
So good. I bought them
else?
both digitally. Sorry.
Digitally, yeah.
Yay.
No, you're good.
Digitally.
You can go to stuvenable.com, and all the information to get them is there. Also, you can get I've released the audio for the first book, the audiobook, the audiobook version of it as a sort of podcast, and it's rolling out like 2 chapters a week. So you can go in and subscribe to that and listen to the first one for free if you want, and hear me, and see if you can hear all of the edits when I fuck up when I'm reading. I don't think you can. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And we have some announcements about Happy Jacks, too. So we have been talking, and there's been, obviously, like, we're all kind of, like, trapped in COVID world, too. So we are kind of going to consolidate with Happy Jacks a little bit. We're still going to be doing lots of stuff, but we just aren't going to be doing quite as many APs a week. We're going to cut down on the number of days we're doing streams, because people are just kind of burned out. Like I spend all day on Zoom for my job. A lot of us are doing that. So then in the evenings, people are like, they love gaming with each other, but gaming through Zoom is a very different experience. And also, Stu and I also are going to be cutting down on the number of things we're needing to manage.
Yep.
So we are probably going to be closing the forum. It has minimal traffic anyway. We'll probably do it like we've done in the past, where we just kind of close it and lock it, so you can still access what's been posted there. But the other things are much more active, and we'll still be doing the Friday show, obviously. We might switch it to Saturday mornings for a little while.
Yeah.
Because my baby doesn't go to bed at Saturday mornings. Her bedtime is 7:30, so it's kind of terribly timed for me to join in. But so we're just going to be doing some tweaks like that. We'll make an announcement. We'll post about it. But just kind of like be looking for that. We're not going to cut down drastically on the number of APs. We'll probably be doing like 4 APs instead of 6 APs. But just for like our sanity and management's sake. Is there anything else to add to that, Stu? Is that okay?
No. The change to Saturday mornings will probably not be for another 3 weeks or so, I'm guessing.
Yeah, for a few
probably
weeks.
Maybe November, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And that'll be nice for the people in Europe, because you'll be able to see the show live, not at 3 a.m. or whatever time it is in Europe right now.
And we've done that before. We've randomly switched it back and forth. So, if you have any questions, like, get in touch. But all of it's mostly just for Stu and my sanity. And you'll still see all the faces you love and hear all the games you like. And,
All right. Let's see. First email, remote and in-person games from Trenchworks. Who would like to read that? Going once.
I do it.
Going twice.
I read it.
It's all American. Okay.
Remote and in-person games from Trenchworks. Salutations, Jackers. I have enjoyed your show, and I would like to ask you for some ideas. I am 45 years old, and one of my gamer friends is a 13-year-old daughter. I am about to run a Monster Hunters Club game in the summer of 85. I'm assuming it's set in the summer of 85.
Yes.
He's not going to try and travel and run it in the summer of 85.
You don't know.
But I don't know. My friend's daughter is going to look up urban legends and monsters for us to fight and do all the background work for me. She's okay with the fact that the game is going to involve only adults who are old enough to have been alive in the 80s. So she knows that she's not allowed to be in the game while we play it. But since she's willing to put in all the effort to give us the monster of the week, she's going to be the boy in the bubble that can't leave their house, but has access to all the information that the players will need. I am intending for her to be available by cell phone for the players to call in real life and at an appropriate time in the game. But she's really excited to play role-playing games in real life, not just online. Do you guys have any suggestions on how to make this experience for her more engaging, to create and mold a good character for her in the future? Thanks, y'all. I think it's actually a really pretty cool thing. Like, she's going to do all that work, and then it's like, you're going to be the person they call, because they don't have the internet.
Right.
The 80s.
Right.
So they're going to get on the phone and call their friend who knows all this stuff, and then that's how this person gets to play. That's kind of a pretty neat way to include them.
My first question is, why don't you just letting her play? That's my very first question. Now that could be her dad's decision. It could be a COVID decision. Who knows? I don't know. But if they're playing in person and dad's there, I mean, come on. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
13 is definitely old enough to role play. I mean, my kids were basically doing it on like live chats anyway, or getting together and they were pretending stuff at 13. There's no stigma for it. They're really open to it and available for it. But I also think, and this is a great way, if she's never role played before, of sort of seeing how it's done, right? You can lead by example, because you learn a lot about role playing by watching other people's role play, at least the first time, which is why APs I think are so popular. So maybe it's a good way to ease her in, so she understands.
But she's not going to get to watch other people role play.
Well,
she's going to be sitting at her house waiting for them to call her.
Well, that's what I wonder. I mean, is it going to be on Zoom and she's also on the phone, or are they like in the house together and she's just they're away by the phone? Or?
Yeah, it's weird because the way I read it and from the title of it, it feels like they're all playing in person.
Let me double check.
In person and online, right? And then she's the one that they call because she's not allowed to be there because it's only people that were alive in the 80s.
Well, yeah, that's the vibe I got when I was hearing it. And this may be wrong, but it got the vibe of, I wanted to include my daughter, but didn't actually want to play with my daughter.
But it's not his daughter. It's one of his friends.
Be available by cell phone for the players to call in real life and at an appropriate time of the game. So it's going to be like when the players decide they need the information, that's when they'll call her, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, me too.
And it's
which is interesting.
It's not the guy who wrote the email's daughter. It's one of the other
players.
One of the other players, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kimmy.
I was going to say, yeah, it may not be even the GM's decision. That maybe the player father, who's like, no, like she's not going to be in the game. I mean, I hope that it's the father facilitating the calling every time. Just as someone who was once a, young teen girl, having a bunch of people having my phone number.
You wouldn't give a bunch of 45-year-old dudes your 13-year-old daughter's phone number?
Nope.
I don't think that's a good idea. I'm sure they thought of that already, but I just want to make that clear.
Now I'm looking at the email. I may have pulled the whole in-person thing out of my ass.
Oh, okay.
Because
all right.
That possibly. I'm looking.
It still doesn't seem like it. Still seems like what? Just let her play. So what if she knows a little bit more? Like that's not a big deal. I don't know.
And if you're afraid of her quality playing, I've been at cons. And kids are great role players. They're great. And it doesn't really affect the adults. They watch their language a bit more. And they actually makes them a little nicer to be around the table and stuff. Instead of just being dicks, they tend to, be a little bit more conscientious with their wording and sometimes with their gameplay if they know that there's a 13-year-old around. But it doesn't completely ruin the fun at all. And
yeah.
I was constantly surprised at how great the kids are. And, we adults underestimate them all the time, and they go right for these great role-playing choices.
Yeah.
I think here's the challenge, right? Part of the question that Trenchworks asks is make this experience for her more engaging to create and mold a good role player for the future. But that's not what you're doing. You're making a good GM for the future.
Yes.
Because this person is being a co-GM.
Yep.
They're looking up stuff. They're giving you monsters. They're there as a resource for the players to call, right? So I wouldn't even know if I try to figure out how to make it a good role-playing experience. I'd involve her way more in all right, here's what happened in the session. Help me figure out what should happen next.
For that, she should definitely be involved too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whichever way, like personally, I think it's a better idea to get her into the role playing aspect of it first. If it seems okay, she's really into helping planning. Cool, that's fine. Okay, if she really wants to do that and make that choice, but either way, she should not be like doing the homework and then just like excluded from the actual sessions. I guess that's my request for more information. Is like why exactly is that happening? Like it may be a COVID thing. Like if they are meeting in person, Dad doesn't want her leaving the house and stuff like that. But then my question is, why is he leaving the house?
Well, he may not be, because, like I said, the whole in-person thing, I kind of pulled out of my ass. So that.
But if it's not in person, then it's even more the case, right? If you're all on Zoom or Discord or Roll20 or whatever, like great, just have her there, right? Even if she's not playing the character. To Kimmy's point, like let her be in the session as a co-GM.
Yeah, exactly. Just that hands-on experience. It just seems like kind of like a tease, or like you're having her do kind of like the extra work, but not getting any of the fun part of it. And maybe it's her choice. Maybe she's not comfortable yet. Maybe she's nervous about being there, in which case that's
maybe
great.
She doesn't want to play with a bunch of 45-year-old men.
Possible. And if it's her choice, that's totally different. But it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah,
no.
I think given the email as it is, he wants to find a way, how can we make the experience good and include her in this? Have her start the sessions. Have her basically give a brief to all the players at the start of the session. So she's the focus at that point, and she can, info dump on them, and then they start the game. That way she's not sitting there waiting, for however long you're playing for they might call. Give her something scheduled to do.
Right.
There was a great cartoon out years ago called Kim Possible, and she always had a guy who was always her touchstone, who was a computer geek, and he would explain things, and it sounds like that would be the perfect role for her, which is, they call up and say, where's this, who's this, what's this, and she has all the answers.
Also,
I call it in Spider-Man, the guy in the chair.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the thing too is like, I want to echo off what Tyler was saying, like give her something scheduled to do that's important about the character that she's playing. Because when I was 13, I don't know about any of you, but I didn't want to be sitting around for 3 or 4 hours some night wondering if my phone might ring to see if my dad's going to call.
Well, that was 13. I loved sitting around on weekend nights waiting for a bunch of 45-year-old dudes to call me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be a legitimate reason why she's not in the game. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't say.
So Trenchworks, right back. Give us some more info.
Yeah. But I mean, if you want to, give her a better role playing experience, I'm playing the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let her role play.
Yeah. And so what if she knows a little bit more? Honestly, since she's the one who was not alive during this period of time, like it probably just puts her on an even playing field with everyone else who actually lived in that time. So.
Right.
Also, because it's a Monster of the Week thing, like maybe come up with a way like why her character's out of time there. That could be kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah.
Like there's a supernatural thing, or she's a time traveler, or it's like, she knows this stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff she doesn't know, and that's kind of the mystery that the characters get to figure out too.
She's a historian from the distant future, from the 2020.
And honestly, if it's we don't want her to play because she wasn't alive in the 80s. I wasn't alive in weird fantasy medieval Europe where I was fighting dragons and stuff. Yeah. We make stuff up. That's how we role play.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I'm not a superhero. Just sorry.
It can be debated.
Pretty close.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Tyler. It's like, yeah, I've not a Victorian historian, and yet I've played some games in Victorian England, so it doesn't stop me.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Trenchworks, for the email. XP for failure from Ben in Texas. Going once?
Oh, I could probably do that one.
Okay.
Hold on. Let's see here. Let me find it. There it is.
That's pretty fit.
Greetings, fellow travelers.
XP for failure, Ben from Texas. Greetings, fellow travelers. I recently, as of the time of writing this email, listened to Happy Jack's RPG 2705, in which you discuss systems for character advancement. Much of the discussion centered around preventing advancement mechanics from interfering with the fiction of the game. One advancement mechanic that I don't recall being discussed is how XP is awarded in PBTA systems. XP awarded for failed rolls. Man, I would advance so far. I've had a blast running Monster of the Week campaign these past few months. At first, my players thought the system was extremely harsh, since even a decent roll only gets you a partial success. Lately, though, my players aren't afraid to make moves that their characters are wildly unprepared for, or just plain bad at. Some of this may come from the PBTA mechanic, where failure leads to a challenging story direction rather than just subtracting hit points. I've observed, however, that a lot of players tend to take a lot of risks to put their characters out on a limb, not just because something interesting might happen if they fail, but because failure gives them that sweet XP they need to become monster hunting machines. I even have players grumbling about how well they're rolling because they really want to take the bizarre move from the Monsters book, or switch to Spellslinger's playbook because it fits their character's development and stirs up the overall story. I've come to really appreciate how this part of the game counters the typical pattern where only the face character gets to talk to anyone outside the party, and only the bruisers take a swing at anyone. That's my copper. Cheers, and thanks to all of you. Thanks for all you do. Take a drink, Ben from Texas. P.S. Stu is Waldorf, and Stork is Statler. My other two copper. That's terrible. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know which one's which.
Yeah, I don't either. Both the hotels look the same to me too. Rewarding characters for failure is an interesting mechanic, but it kind of makes sense in many, many ways. I mean, I'm sure it's said in the PBTA book, which is, you learn more from failure than you ever do from successes, and pain is a great teacher of things, but it's also you don't get punished for failing. Sometimes the dice just don't work, and rather than being punished for it, you can, at least there's some good comes out of it. So yeah, I kind of dig that. I mean, there's been some MMOs where you get punished for, like, taking the wrong step off the treehouse and you die, and you're like, what the fuck? This isn't fun at all. And I learned that the treehouse, falling damage sucks, but fuck you, it's rock. That sucks.
There's a role-playing game called Continuum. I think I've talked about it before on the show. It's a time travel role-playing game. And every time you succeed at a skill check, you get a point for, getting up to the next level. But if you fail, you get 2 points. So failure, you learn, like you said, you learn more from failure. And I love systems that do that, where if you fail, it's like, what did you learn from that? And then you get extra points for it.
Yeah.
It does stir the story up because it keeps your players from making the safe choice. Sometimes they'll make the outrageous choice, which is a lot more fun game-wise and role-playing-wise, because, there's a chance for it to go sideways, and we all might get XP.
Yeah. When I designed Virgins and Vixens, I designed it like that, because you get your character advances through the system by when you try things that you're not good at specifically. So if you're charming and you roll, and you have that as one of your descriptor words, and you roll with that and you succeed, cool, that's fine, you succeeded. But if you don't have charming and you try and charm somebody and it's not one of your things, because I think that, I don't know, in real life we learn from our mistakes so much. I think that kind of mirrors a truth that's more accurate in real life than in games, where it's just like, okay, you only learn things, you only advance when you succeed and when you kill the monster. It's like, no, actually, the time you killed the monster and you had to run, to save your ass, and you figured out, oh, hey, wait, that didn't work. You probably learned a lot more, and you became a much better adventurer for that experience than the ones when you're succeeding.
You get more stamina because you ran.
Yeah, exactly.
I learned more.
I feel like
I learned more about how to drive by getting into accidents than by driving home without any problems happening. That is absolute truth.
I feel like a system like that, where you get rewarded for trying things you're not good at, also would help curb character creation min-maxing, like dumping all your points into one thing. It's like, great, you're great at that. That's gonna be the one thing you do, and you're good at it, but you don't skill up.
Forgot which game I used to play, or maybe it's something I played recently. But there is a mechanic. I forgot which game I used to play. I forget the games I'm playing now. I think there was a mechanic that the worse you were to skill, the better the chance you were to improve it.
Man, it's Call of Cthulhu.
Was it Call of Cthulhu?
Call of Cthulhu does that, yeah.
Yeah, any of the Rollmaster games, that's Master, Rollmaster,
basic role playing, BRP.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah, BRP. Like any of those, it's a great system. I was playing in a Rollmaster, or actually a Hornmaster game for a while, and that was the thing that was really interesting. Is I would just try stuff, and whether you succeeded or failed, you still got rolls as long as you used the skill. But then if you got a critical success or critical failure, even then you got 2 rolls. and the number you had to roll under was based off of your skill level, and it was a much higher number to roll under if you had a lower skill level. So it went opposite. So the higher and higher skill you had, the harder it was to improve it.
Yeah, I think you have
Really
to roll.
cool, 'cause you just tried everything.
You have to roll. You have to roll percentile dice over your
yeah.
skill level. Right.
That's right. Over
So
the
that,
higher.
makes that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's such an elegant like solution for learning things, and then you can just try anything and learn it. But again, it balances out. At some point, you hit 50%, and you're which is about how good any of us ever get at anything, right?
It depends.
Yeah, I'm actually running a Monster of the Week game right now, and it's the first PBTA I've run. And there's two things I really like about it. One is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, oh, great, somebody fails. Okay, the thing I like about PBTA games is either a partial success or a failure is just great stuff for the GM.
Yeah.
It's so, delicious, more things for me to play with. But when the failure happens, it becomes just like, experience, market experience, right? Like it's not, the thing didn't happen. It's a complete downer. There's an even more upside when things don't go the way you wanted them to go. The other thing I like about PBTA is that I don't roll any dice. So it's never the like, oh man, the GM's rolling really good tonight and we're getting screwed. It's like, you're rolling all the dice. I'm not rolling them. I can't help it's the fourth time you failed your roll, and now that you're in, the Sasquatch's loving embrace, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
I love getting blamed for my good rolling when I'm GMing.
You roll like a motherfucker when you're GMing, though. It's astonishing.
You gotta have something to make up for your crappy tactics.
I know.
I think there's good things about both. Like, there's great times where the GM's rolling and there's that anticipation of like, oh god, did I beat your roll? And there's a fun dynamic there. But it also is great. Like as a GM, I also prefer like the PBTA style where I do more story than actual maths. Just because I don't know, I that's the part I enjoy about GMing. But it's cool when you're the player and you're like, aha, I got 10 more than you. Suck it, Stu. Ha ha.
Right.
Because that's what I sound like always in the game.
Right, exactly.
I get it. When it gets to be too dice heavy, there's too many randomizers. It turns into bookkeeping. Everybody starts writing numbers down. You start comparing and looking, and after a while, you what were we doing again?
Yeah.
You get so caught up in adding up numbers.
That's a common complaint about GURPS.
Yeah.
Or Hero.
I like because I really love playing Wild Talents, and there's a shit ton of dice rolling in that. So I guess it just depends on the system.
Right.
Yeah, but Wild Talents dice are easy.
Yeah. Well, it's also just like, has it all happened so quickly? Like, you got a million dice, everybody rolls at the same exact time, and then you get to tell the story based on what the dice say. So there's not like that turn-taking aspect of it.
You're not watching someone else roll dice and do math and then screaming inside your head because they can't add quick enough.
Right, yeah.
Hey.
I'm feeling your attack.
Well, not just that, but it just is like, by the time it gets to your spot, you're like, you have to pay I don't know. There's something about games that have a lot of dice that you take turns with that sometimes as a GM it's hard for me to probably because of my ADHD like really fixate that much and like really pay attention to what everybody's doing that whole time. So PBTA and like in Wild Towns where it's one roll all at the same time are much better for my brain.
That's why when I run D&D now, there's no initiative. Everybody just shouts their actions at the same time.
Right.
Whoever's loudest goes first.
That's amazing.
Right.
There's an interesting little side conversation with Ed from Minnesota happening in the stream chat. We're talking about story driving character improvement, right? Or character improvement driving story, and what those things are. And it's interesting, like Ed's saying, character growth is driven by story, and that can change in every session. It's not driven by how many rats you've killed. And
Everquest.
Yeah, and I think like story can be used to drive character improvement, right? Like it doesn't have to, but it's that idea where something happens in the story, right? And because it happened, that then leads to what the improvement is. That way you're like, I got better at this gun skill because these events happened, and I was forced to do this. Or I met someone who was an expert marksman. I took time to train with them. Like the story drives those things as opposed to, well, ding, I got a level. I have 4 points to spend. I think I'll take guns. Right. Which to me is like the worst way to have it. Yeah.
That's what we used to do. That's what we used to do when we played GURPS all the time. Everyone would have to have some sort of in-game justification for why they were spending their experience points they were spending. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I like games like where there's like a follow up after the session. You know, what did your character learn? What happened to your character that made them improve? What did they get worse at? Things like that, and that's how you derive your character improvement. Despite the fact that all I ever play anymore is 5e. I love systems like that, and I'm trying to get away from it, 5e, into other games that are more narrative like that.
Well, I don't see why you can't tack that onto the end of a 5e game without any, drama.
Tell us why, Tyler. you look like that's not true.
Yeah.
Because the improvement in 5e is strictly numerical.
Yeah.
I don't see a way to make it work well. Whereas, a different game like a White Wolf game, where you have various skills and things like that, you could say why you improved a specific skill. And it's supposed to be done with enough hacking, but...
Well, I know, like in 4E, once you dinged up a certain level, you got a list of skills that you could pick from. You could pick one or something from... So you could justify, this is why I got these skills at this point. Although at one point I think I leveled up and got all new spells or whatever. It was like, this makes no sense. Why do I...
The Everquest RPG, there's a tabletop RPG for Everquest that every level you just got a set amount of points. And that was how you could buy your feats or your skills or your spells and things like that. And that was pretty neat. And that could be used the same way, but nobody ever played that game.
Well, because you'd step off a treehouse and die. And it was
die.
the worst.
Get killed by a rat when you finally left the town the first time.
Which game was this? Which MMO was this?
EverQuest.
EverQuest.
Oh, EverQuest. Yeah. All right. Anything else on this one?
Which is still going.
Is it really?
Yeah, there's servers. There's still servers up.
It's owned by another company. Sony sold it to a company called Daybreak, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in San Diego.
Very much pay-to-win, cash-driven game now.
I remember when EverQuest was coming out and it was in beta testing, and I got into beta somehow, and I was trying to fight a rat, like the classic level 1, and my the stats were, because it was in beta, were so broken. I couldn't hit the rat, and the rat couldn't hit me. So it was like, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I was like, I wonder how long this will go on. So I left it running overnight. It's when I was at work.
Oh, my God.
I went home. I came back the next day, and I was like, oh, my character's dead. I guess it finally got me. And I scrolled back to the combat log. No, I died of starvation. It was great.
I can still remember the rat attacks. I was like... for hours, I'm sure.
Now, was it that game, or was it Dark Age of Camelot that had that little brownie that you can almost never see?
That one. It was EverQuest.
Was it EverQuest?
Well, no, yeah, both of them had it.
Yeah.
They had Comties in Dark Age of Camelot that was similar. But yeah, that little brownie bastard in EverQuest.
You had to run through the Kith? You had to run through the forest. And that
Fade
brownie. Yeah, Fade
That's
Arc,
it, yeah.
Nuke you. Just...
So, Kimmy, EverQuest is an old MMORPG that was out when you were like 2, maybe before that. You might not have been born yet.
It came out after Ultima Online, which is what I played. But I was hardcore Ultima Online, and anyone who left Ultima for EverQuest was a traitor, and we hated them.
Because there can only be one MMORPG.
Yeah.
There can only be one.
I think Lurch, the other base in Boggarts, might actually still be playing Ultima Online.
Yeah, there's a bunch of servers still active, and
yeah. Wouldn't be surprised.
I still have dreams about it sometimes, where because I spent so many hours looking at that screen for so many years. I'll have a dream where it's like me, and I'm not playing, like the world is Ultima. It's very bad in 2D. It's very strange.
I've said this before, but I always found it so fascinating because I rebooted EverQuest not too long ago, maybe a year or two ago, and they have like a whole new thing where you can start again. And at one point I decided to go back to the old towns, right, which are empty. But I wandered through there, and it was like that scene in Patton where he's standing there looking at this, like, there's a battle fought here, and I'm having these memories of like, oh yeah, my guild raided here. Oh yeah, that's where I fell out of that tree, and oh yeah, it was nostalgic in a lot of real ways. I was actually getting misty in places. I'm like, oh yeah, I had so much fun because like you, I spent hours there, and I got to know the maps, and the area and the zones, like the back of my hand. And so wandering through them again, and they're all empty, and I was like, it was just a weird experience. And it's a digital space I've never been in, and yet I knew it.
Yeah.
Like I was so yeah. I don't know
I
how-
do
I still
with
get that
WoW
Skinner
stuff.
box reaction to the Everquest level up sound.
Yeah.
I still go through and I still do the Lich King raid every once in a while, and I'm very nostalgic for when we were battling our way through it, Phil and Tyler, and like Tyler's like yelling in the headset, "Don't do that!" Sorry, continue. This is way off topic.
All right. Thank you, Ben from Texas, for the email. Online dice roller from Joe Crack. Who would like to read this one?
I'll read this one.
Okay.
Online dice roller, Joe Crack. Hey, the crew and Stu. I'm catching up on episodes and hearing some discussion of why people would use an online dice rolling program or app, like Roll for Your Party and Roll Dice with Friends. For me, in a lot of games, I play at conventions and online, and a lot of the fun is when the table gathers around watching those dice roll to see how things turn out. An online dice roller app simulates that experience of being able to watch the dice fall and people react. Obviously, not everyone shares this small bit of pleasure, but I find it to be fun. Oh, and someone said that Roll for Your Party sucks.
Is it?
Okay, there you go.
I don't.
It used to be great, but if I recall, it had trouble re-rolling selected dice, so that's been my problem with it. Though if I delete the dice and roll new dice, it works fine. A dice roller app doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to work for me. Joe.
Yeah, Roll for Your Party is the one where it's like there's no graphics. It looks like it's all just numbers. It's got a bunch of boxes on it.
I had one that I got that had little dice or whatever, and it was not real intuitive to set up, especially if you're doing something like Savage Worlds where you needed different dice for different things, and I just found it to be clunky. I just kind of feel like somebody make a nice intuitive dice roller. You just either on your phone you hit the dice you want and the number you want and you roll them, or
There's dozens of those.
You know, it's crazy though. If you just go into Google and type online
look it
dice
up.
roller, it just brings up one in your Google browser.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It doesn't even take you to a page now because that's how popular having an online dice roller is. You just get it from like default Google page.
Yeah.
But like Roll20 has one built in. D&D Beyond has one built in now, and you can actually buy different like skins for your dice, and it will roll them on your screen. It's not shared; other people can't see it, but it's there. So if you really need to see dice rolling, it does it on your screen for you.
Yeah. There's a new online role playing platform that just came out too. Is it Legend? Is this what it's called or something? I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, but I saw it the other day, and they're like wondering if it will compete with D&D Beyond and Roll20. So I'm interested to see. I haven't loved anything. I mean, especially like with the paid services and stuff. I don't know. I've never found that there's. Also, because I don't play D&D. People who play D&D do say it's definitely worth playing with on those platforms because there's so much built in there. Since I never played D&D, really, I've never found them completely super useful. Maybe if Decima gets on one of them someday. But I don't know. I'm interested to see what this platform is giving.
Well, D&D Beyond's not like an online platform for gaming. It's just a repository you can hold character sheets and put in campaign information, but it's not like Roll20 where it gives you the maps and the chat room and everything like that.
Oh, I thought
It's all the books and character sheets basically.
I thought that they'd added some functionality for online gaming. Maybe I'm wrong. I know they definitely have things that you can build in. It may be. I don't remember. I don't know. Let me Google for a moment.
Okay.
There's one that I've been looking at that I want to get. It's just entered early access. It's called Roll, R-O-L-E, and it's.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it seems really intriguing. They had a Kickstarter for it and everything, and it sounds like they're doing everything right. They're kind of taking all the lessons learned from all the other online gaming, platforms and condensing it and making it simple. So I think that might be the one I want to try if I ever start doing a game online. But again, sometimes you just join a game, you use whatever they have.
Yeah, there's actually one I was just looking at. It's if you go to like a.teal.info/dice. It's like a really like attractive die roller, and it's got all the dice laid out, and you just like you click on it, like click. I want 2 d6s, and I'll take a d10 and a d20, and you click throw, and then it graphically throws them out there, and then tells you which the dice is and gives you a total.
Cool.
And I'm like, oh, so that there's like so many. There's a lot of nice little ones being put out there. I think the thing that becomes interesting is when somebody figures out how to put everything together to give really powerful tools to GMs that then makes it also really inclusive for the players, right? But as like simple to use as possible, right? Where it's just like, oh, hey, everybody grab this. Okay, boom, we're on. And it's not like hard and cryptic and you have to be half a programmer to understand it. And, that'll be the one that grabs, a ton of people, because a lot of folks are on Roll20 now and it does a lot of really powerful stuff, but it feels like there's a big learning curve when you first get on there on how to use everything.
Yeah, we quizzed Tyler about that, I think, the last time he was on, because he's no fool when it comes to computers, and even he said it was a challenge. Am I putting words in your mouth?
No, it's pretty accurate. I still don't know how to do half the stuff with it.
Yeah.
I get stuff to work sometimes, and I don't know how. Then my players will be like, how'd you do that? And I'm like, I can't tell you that. It's a secret.
I'm sorry, Fantasy Grounds is the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds are the biggest ones, and Roll20 is if you have more time than money, and Fantasy Grounds is if you have more money than time. Because of the stuff that's built for it.
That makes sense.
It's a great elevator pitch right there.
All right. Thank you, Joe Crack, for the email. Anything else on that one? And I'll get a bonus email I found. This is from Jonas Larson. My dearest of podcasts. My dearest of podcasts. I can't read on a computer screen, apparently. I bring you good news and bad news.
Good news.
I'm going to make this bigger because my old eyes can't see it. There we go. The good news is that my oldest son, 11 years old, has started to love RPGs. Something I've always hoped for. I would love to know what that's like. It started with that he came to me and asked if I could run a game for him and his friends for his birthday. Sure, he specifically asked me to run D&D. I blame our mutual love for the Order of the Stick for that. But I decided to not be a stick in the mud by insisting that we run a better game like Savage Worlds or Forbidden Lands instead. Said and done. We ran D&D, and my son and his friends had a blast. He had been on me ever since to run another session. The problem is, I thought it was awful. The kids shouted and screamed all the time. No one was listening to what the others said. They even got so excited that they physically jumped up and down, overturning glasses and chairs. I obviously don't yet have the correct tools to run a game for this age bracket. So if you know anyone that is great with these kinds of things... that's me looking at you, Kimmy.
Okay.
I don't know, like a cosplaying teacher or something. Maybe that person could give me some strategies to make my games better. Shall I make it more clear at the start of the session what is expected from them? Write down rules of conduct that they should follow. Curl into a ball under the table and cry until my kids have reached a sensible age. Jonas Larson, a flummoxed dad.
Yeah. I mean, all of those sound like a good plan together.
I know his description of the game sounds just like any normal game. I don't understand.
Different than adults playing.
Nick, how great is it that they were so excited that they were jumping up and down and knocking stuff over, though? Like, I mean, I know you like cleaning up the mess probably sucked, but that's like such a huge success. Like, that's fantastic.
I mean, that sounds like a successful game. The players had a great time.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my first reaction.
What do you need to improve?
What do you need to fix? It sounds like they had a really great time.
Yeah, and he's begging you to do it again. Yeah, as far as them not paying attention and stuff, I mean, that's kind of part of the course for the age group. Maybe work on, I mean, definitely sitting them down at the beginning and saying, hey, I'm so glad you had fun. Like, here are some agreements. So this is what we do. So, like, it's really important that we all pay attention. I know I've said this before, but having some sort of, for when you're doing, like, the combat and it's different people's turns, like, having some sort of, I don't want to say, like, the conch or whatever, like, the talking stick that you pass around, just to, like, hey, this is your turn. So everyone's kind of paying attention to that person and they can kind of keep track. If you really want it to keep flowing, maybe do, like, time limits, although some kids will react very negatively to that. just with like a little an hourglass would be super cool. You can get like those 2-minute timer hourglasses that they have for brushing their teeth. Get one of those and like, okay, there's your 2 minutes to tell me what you're doing for your turn. Things like that to kind of just keep it moving. Having if you're finding that while they're sitting there making choices, I'm actually started writing a booklet about this. I should definitely like finish it. Have like a little list of suggested things they can do. Like you can attack, you can dodge, so that's not telling them what to do, but it's just kind of a little like list that they can reference when they're trying to think of what they can do in combat and other things.
A player map.
Yeah, just
I made these player mats for our L5R game, but also for Savage Worlds, and they come in really handy when you're in the middle of combat. You forget what you can do. Oh yeah, there's this option, this choice.
Yeah, and those are really great too. Like a little cheat sheet with what do you roll for certain things. If you're finding that they're having trouble and they're asking over and over and over and over and over again, what do I do? I want to hit him. What do I do? Like that way you have that on that mat. Because even I, as a woman, like really love when like people remind me. Hey, this is this game. This is the game we roll these in. Okay. And as far as their behavior, like you do different things. If they are outright misbehaving, like they're trying to be dicks, you're going to handle it in a very different way than if they are just becoming so enthusiastic and so exuberant that they're knocking things over. That's a simple reminder. That's maybe get those little glasses that don't tip over. Things like that, like find those fixes rather than putting a bunch of rules on them so that they feel self-conscious about celebrating and enjoying themselves. That would be my biggest thing, because you don't want to squash that enthusiasm and that just unbridled joy that they're having, because you're doing a kick-ass job, it sounds like, and putting a whole bunch of, well, we can't jump around, we need to, that's it's going to take the fun out of it. Maybe try gaming in your backyard, or, at this point, you're probably, I don't know, maybe you are still gaming together. But gaming outside, there's not as many spill problems. Like, they can knock shit over and it's not as big a deal. And they can be louder and it's not unless you have neighbors who care. But kind of think of fixes like that rather than trying to, like, quell their sense of achievement and love and passion and shouting. I don't know.
There's a suggestion that ties in with that I was thinking of, which is take multiple little breaks. Have them go to the bathroom, or just enough to blow off some steam, or just to decompress. Find a time where it's like after every 20 minutes, you take a 10-minute pee break, and it gives them a chance to go get some water or whatever else. And also, cut down on the sugar. Don't have a lot of sodas or something in the house, because it'll make them all jangly and really ready to just explode. So
yeah.
You save the sugar for the end of the night when you're going to give them back to their parents to take them home.
Yes, they always enjoy that. But having multiple little breaks in between just to let everybody calm down and run around will help a lot.
We even had to get those unspillable wine glasses for ourselves here.
Yeah.
In the chat, in the chat, Davio Mac put something that I was thinking about. I don't know if it would work really with kids, but would be super interesting is using a chess clock. And I was thinking like there'd be some really interesting mechanic where it's your turn, and then you like the GM's like, okay, and go, boom, and hits it, and then however long you have to take to do your thing, and you hit it, then that's what the GM has to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Like not with kids, that might be too much, but like that would be a crazy system where you're like, and you go, and I cast fireball. You're just trying to get the GM to have to like react too quick, so you're just like, how fast can I do my stuff?
Would you have to resolve your rolls and everything too? Would you have to make your roll and like tell the GM your number before you could hit the clock though?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure.
I think so.
That would actually that would really limit.
Go ahead.
That would really limit the amount of time you could take for combat. Could you just say whoever, like, because you said it like, okay, there's going to be each side has 10 minutes on the chess clock, and then when that time runs out, whoever's doing better, the other side ran away or something, and the combat is just simply resolved. I love that idea.
You can even apply character modifiers to it, like the faster your character is, the more time you get.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right, yeah, you guys are quick, so you get an extra minute on the clock.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, great.
But getting back to running D&D for kids, or not necessarily D&D, but games for kids, I've run a few games for students when I was working at the school, and one thing I like to do was give them physical activities to do.
Yeah.
Like I had a group where the players needed to they needed to stop some goblins that were about to go up in balloons and drop bombs on a village. So I set up like a balloon. I blew up balloons with a crate, and I gave them sharpened pencils. I said, "You guys got to stop those balloons." And based on their role, I would let them get closer or make them be further away from the balloons, and they would have to pop the balloons.
That's
Stuff
genius.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, things
I
to
love
do
doing
is
stuff like that.
yeah. It's like when I run Grim games at cons, I always have a physical element that the players do in character, and in that setting, it's adults being kids, but to let them do something that's not the dice and the mechanics, but lets them start to get into their character, right? And it's been everything from build a 3D puzzle house, which was the worst one because that took way too long, to everybody got handouts and they had to color them, to writing Valentine's cards for like the other characters and different stuff. Like having an actual physical component that's not the mechanics, right? That lets them do those things that's naturally engaging, whether it's art or music or building something or whatever it is, could be helpful too. But if you bring it into the game, that could be a cool element.
I've had
It
simple
does go crazy.
I've had simple
Because I had an
substitution
idea.
ciphers that's always a big hit. And I think, Bill, you were in my Fey Realm game that I did, and I had a puzzle. But it was a door puzzle, and suddenly all the players were up off their seats and huddled, and everybody's got a piece, and they're moving around, and there's discussion, and everybody really loved it. And it only took like 5 minutes for people to figure it out, but it was such a nice little distraction from the game. Yeah, that's a great idea, Bill. Something interactive. And
I was running Weeby Goblins for Pathfinder for a bunch of kids at a con once, and there's a challenge where the characters have to eat as many of bugs as they can for some tribal thing. And I thought, I should just get a bunch of gummy candy, just throw it on the table, and be like, whoever eats the most wins. And I ran it by my wife, and she was like, that is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Don't do that.
Have a bunch of injured, vomiting children who are way too hyped up.
I don't know if they have one
I
for
still
5e.
don't see the downside.
I don't know if they have one for 5e, but I think there was a guy named D&D Dad or something, and he wrote like a
Yeah,
for 4e, I think it was.
James Stowe, and it was
Okay.
D&D for Dads.
And,
yeah,
and it's a great resource for because he was dealing with his kids when they were young. And he made simplified character sheets. He has all these little tips that he gives out. So if you're listening, check out that. Is it a website? Does he have a book? I don't remember. I know there's a lot of
don't know that
resources.
it's up anymore. It was a long time ago.
So
While he's looking for that, the other thing, like related to like the puzzles and things like that, make sure at the start of the session you come with some sort of decision-making mechanic for when they can't decide things together. Because this is not an age where they're going to be able to discuss it and come to a resolution on their own. So, like, say, okay, for each action, we're going to talk about it for X amount of time, and then we're going to vote. And you can do a silent voting where they each write on a paper and you pass it around, and that way it's, they can write whatever they want. They don't have to, like, be angry at each other. Or you can have them raise their hands, like, the group best, whatever would work best. But that's also really important for this age group. Because as adults, we can kind of talk about something and eventually 8 hours later come to a resolution about what is the best course of action. But kids can't really do that. They will just stick by what they think, and they just
adults can barely do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get resentful. Like, fine, we'll do it your way. Fine.
right, exactly. So have some sort of thing that you agree on with them ahead of time, whether you're informing them before you make any decisions, and also limit the discussion times, because kids will hit a point where they're just going in circles saying the same things over and over. If you're lucky, they'll word it differently, but they don't always. So like limiting discussions to like 5 to 10 minutes or whatever you think is appropriate for your group will also kind of help keep things moving as well. And finding, I know there's a bunch of different things. They've kickstarted little booklets. I have like a journey adventurer's guide or something somewhere here that are really cool, neat looking for note taking during games. So have that, and maybe have everybody have their own, or have one person that you pass it around each game. Make sure you're making, if one of them's dyslexic or things like that, make sure you're taking disabilities into account, because that would make a game very unfun for some kids. But if you find some cool kid-friendly like note-taking sheet, that could also be a great way for them to continue paying attention. You don't want them to be writing a ton of stuff, but you could probably, I mean, I'm sure there's probably stuff like this out there somewhere where it's like, hey, monsters we fought, bop, bop, bop. And like, it's just like one word things and notes as they go along that they can then reference next time they play.
I actually do that when I'm GMing. I have a four boxes on a page, and it's characters they met, places they went, things they forgot, stuff like that.
That's the biggest list, right?
Plot
there.
hooks they've dropped.
They forgot. Plot hooks.
Stuff they just flat out ignored.
Did you find that reference, Tyler, for the D&D?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. It's jamesstowe.blogspot.com from back in 2011.
Yeah, he did the 4E character sheets that were really awesome.
He's got a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the character sheets, I remember saving them on my computer back in the day because I found them to be really cool. There's just all the info's there. It's just the graphics are different and they're really good. They're easy to look at. They're fun.
Yeah, it's like a character portrait and then the different actions they can do. And it's basically, it's 4E.
Yeah. Although I did see something on a forum, I was Googling it as well, and there might be some updated stuff for 5th edition out there somewhere. Yeah. I'm not sure, though.
You could probably take it and at least modify it, like even if it doesn't have all the updated like math and system stuff. Like the list of actions you can take are probably going to be very similar. Like having a little picture of your character, like all that stuff is stuff kids will love.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know, about 11 years old. That might be a little too old for that. Remember when we ran that? What was it called? Hero Kids.
Hero Kids, yeah.
And I think Zachary was the oldest kid, and I think he was 9 or 8. I don't remember how old he was.
He was younger than that. I think he was like 7. Yeah, Hero Kids is awesome. If you go to Drive-Thru RPG, there's a bazillion different adventures for it now.
Yeah.
They're all like $2. That one's aimed at 5 to 9-year-olds though. But if your kids are having trouble keeping track of stuff, like they don't know that, so run it for them. And it's great. It's like a little like training wheels into D&D for kids. It's very simplified. I adore that the character sheets are coloring pages.
Yes, that was the thing I was going to mention, was the fact that I don't know if that would work for 11-year-olds, but for the kids that age, giving them a bunch of colored pencils or crayons and their character sheets, that when things get slow, they've got something to do right away.
Everybody loves to color. Adult coloring books are flying off the shelves right now, so that never goes away.
Yeah,
people love
I don't know, Golden Girls coloring book for a friend.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Laser Ponies has that too. And I'm designing a kids game right now, and I'm also stealing that fantastic idea. And the character sheets are going to be coloring pages.
It's brilliant. All right, anything else on this one? We're good? Yeah. Going once, going twice?
Go follow and sign up for messages from goldenlassogames.com, because eventually I'm going to finish writing the darn booklet that I started the first time someone wrote one of these emails. And then you'll know that it's there and you can look at it. Your kid's probably going to be 25 by then, so it'll be too late. But...
All right. I'm going to go ahead and play us out.
Cool.
Thank you for joining us for Season 27, Episode 13 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I am Bill.
I am Stork.
I am Kimmy.
I'm Tyler.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Time on Friday, happyjacks.org/live. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Why problem make when you no problem have, you don't want to make?